A Dear Billy Nick connection. Wow, what an underrated topic, but I actually think one of the most important ones. I'll be honest, I haven't listened to all your episodes yet. I am relatively new to the podcasts in general. I have so many voices in my head constantly talking that I dreaded adding extra. But then I discovered your podcast and it all just feels so natural. I now know I now don't mind being stuck in traffic because it gives me a couple of extra minutes with you both. After listening to your love episode, I found myself wondering if I had felt love as a child. At first I thought, I didn't. I knew I was loved, but did I feel it? But after the episode I reflected again and I realised I definitely felt the love, but it was the connection that wasn't really there. A little bit of context. I lived and grew up with my grandparents on a farm in Africa. My mum sadly passed away 10 days before my 3rd birthday. She was in a car accident. I was with her. I survived by some miracle. She was only 22. From what I've heard, she was a wonderful, loving mum and amazing human. I wish I could have known her. I just know we would have been best friends. Also, sadly, my dad was not capable of looking after me. He apparently had an alcohol problem and I'm sure mental health problems. He committed suicide when I was 6. He was only 26. I only found out about it being a suicide when I discovered his death certificate at 18. My grandparents told me that it was an accident while he was cleaning his gun. He'd been a personal guard for politicians. So there's a big rupture of trust when this came out, and I think highlights how unconnected we all were. Needless to say, I actually don't have many young childhood memories. Some flashes of what I think are memories probably combined with memories I created based on stories and photos. But saying all that, my grandparents were wonderful parents and I was always felt blessed to have them, and I knew that they loved me. But there was something missing, and reflection has shown me that it was connection. I always envied my friends who had mums they could talk to about anything or get advice from. My grandparents tried so hard to do everything that was right for me, but I just never felt like I belonged or connected with them the way I saw my friends with their parents. Generational gap was obvious, and I know it was hard for them too. To make matters more difficult, I had to go to boarding school, very common back then at home, which further severed the connection because the teachers who were essentially raising us during the week were horrible and I really struggled. I still have this image as a young child watching my grandparents drive away on a Sunday afternoon after dropping me off, crying, feeling so alone, knowing that I wouldn't see them for a whole week, sometimes more. It's a long time for a 7-year-old. Thinking back on connection, I can't recall having any adult in my life as a young person that I had a consistent, genuine connection with, which makes me so sad for my younger self and also so determined to create connection with my own children. Adding quite a disruptive early adulthood, lots of moving around, an abusive marriage and a very traumatic divorce, I finally found a safe space with my current husband. Connection is not his strongest attribute, and I'm desperately trying to get him to listen to your podcast, but he's a wonderful human who is patient with me as I reparent myself along with actually parenting. I also now have 2 wonderful energetic boys, 1.5 and 4. After I had my first, I had a bout of postnatal depression and it passed, and eventually I felt great. Loving being a mum, and I connected with him quickly and strongly. He's my little shadow. When he turned 3, I looked at his little body and couldn't fathom him losing me like I lost my mum. He was so little. I truly have only grieved my own childhood since having children of my own. After my second, my postnatal depression set in quite heavily due to other contributing factors too, and to be honest, I don't think I'm quite out of it just yet, but better at least. But what this meant was my connection and how I was connecting to my second was very different to my first. With depression, life matters, and having very demanding Mr. One. With depression, life matters, and having a very demanding Mr. One, I just don't know how to balance giving Mr. Two the attention and connection he deserves. I'm so worried that I'm failing. He has a bit of a parental preference for his dad, which I totally get is normal too, but it has felt a bit like my punishment for letting him down that first year of life and not being present as I should have been. To try and rebuild our connection, I've built out a schedule to incorporate a morning every week with just him, which I'm so excited about because I feel like I need to make up for the hours I spent drowning around him. Finally, leading to my question now, and thank you for bearing with me, and I'm not sure if this is a silly question to be honest, but how do I do justice to Mr. 2 other than one-on-one time, which I'm able to do now but won't last forever? How do I connect with Mr. 1? How do I connect with him while Mr. 1 doesn't allow us any space when we're all together? It's tricky. Or is it just what having multiple kids is like? I didn't have any siblings, so I feel quite new to sharing and being shared, and I'd love some tips on what to say to Mr. 1 while I'm spending time with Mr. 2. Or does the second find the connection, or does the second find the connection in the togetherness? Thank you for all that you're doing. I've cried every episode I've listened to. Not going to lie, sometimes I hear what I should be doing and I feel like I'm failing, but I love that both you share your realness too, which helps bring back the message that no one's perfect and we're all just doing our best. I could write an essay on how great you are, because you are, but I'll let you get on to your other letters. Thank you. An almost connected mum.
What do you think listening to that?
Tough. Yeah, I always just think immediately when I get drawn so quickly when someone says, I've got 2 boys, 1.5 or 4, I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah, I just think that would be really tough. I don't have to think back to the start of that question. I have both my parents still now and I'm 44 years old, so I don't know what it'd be like at age 3 and 6 to lose both of them.
Yeah.
I didn't have to go to a boarding school and do those things because my grandparents probably struggled or that was common or whatever, but I can't relate to that, Yeah. Like I just have that's so tough. And then this person doing all this work to get better, it's just amazing. Yeah. And what I can understand is the reparenting along the way. So that would make for like you're trying to parent and you're seeing all this stuff for the first time. You don't have siblings, so you got no gauge on what person's doing amazing work.
Yeah.
Tough.
Yeah, what a privilege to be a small part of our journey.
Yeah, totally.
I think there's a couple of things that are really helpful, and I reckon you're going to have a really good answer for when one kid is crowding the other, especially the older kid. But I think before we get to that, there's a really beautiful bit in it of what she's reflecting on and helping us all learn the difference between love, so unconditional support and positive regard from, the grandparents, and being madly in love with someone. And I think that's where a lot of the connection comes from. And I wonder if you do this, but I do this. I show both my kids every single day how much I adore them. I say it a lot, but I show them as well. And Annalise is really good at this too. We're just so excited to see them, multiple times a day, to be with them, to be having fun with them. And that really high level of joy, it heals our wounds from our own childhood as well. So that's often the pathway back, and thinking about, do we purposely do that? I think you do as well. You really celebrate who the girls are in the moment, connecting with them and humming. And that's the highest level of connection, isn't it? Yeah,
I love, I do like picking the kids up.
Yeah.
It's those sorts of things. It's like you haven't seen them. And just, I've always loved just picking them up from school or daycare. We put our kids in a lot of those things a lot, so it's really great to reconnect really quickly. And it's just nice. There's nothing like, a kid seeing you and then lighting up.
And then you see them first and then they see you across the room.
There's nothing quite like it, I reckon.
Yeah, it's really beautiful.
Really nice. So, so I like that part of it.
And tell me, the next bit, you've got an older kid, I've got an older kid too, that crowds out the younger one a fair bit.
Yeah.
What do you do?
I try and celebrate one or the other, try to get the other one to celebrate the other one. Do you know what I mean? So it's not like saying, Ron will come up with a drawing and I'll be like, oh my goodness, and I'll be like, Winnie, did you draw this? And then she'll be like,
older,
my older sister will be like, did you draw that? Who did Mum do the letters? And I'll be like, no, I did them. And I'm like, did you see the letters she did? And then so I show the other one, like, we should be really happy for that one. And it's then done in a genuine way. And like one of them will then run off and come back with something. And then you're like, did you just go and get help with this? And they're like, no. And you're like, and you know, so can you believe she did that? And then like I just sort of invite them in to be like, can you believe? I don't do this all the time. It's just, let's just, when I do it well, that's what I do, Billy. Yeah. The other time is I'm like, God, like, mate, your sister needs help. Just give us a second. So I do that too. But yeah, that's the other end of the spectrum.
That's what I was going to say, and you said it better than I could, which is not that surprising. But I do. Evie and I celebrate Charlie together. We're down on the ground with him, like really enjoying him together. And then I've noticed over time, Evie then celebrates Charlie and repeats those patterns of behaviours even when I'm not there. Just down, telling him how amazing he is, you know, like really enjoying him.
And try and challenge him, like in a healthy way. Like you'll be like, Winnie will do something, I'll be like, yeah, that's cool. I'm not sure Ron could do that. And Ron will be like, yeah, I can. Be like, can you? It's pretty big girl stuff, you know, like not big girl stuff. Like, and then she'll do it and be like, oh my God.
And set them up to succeed.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So exactly something they can do. Yeah, totally. That sort of one.
Yeah.
But that's kind of like it feels like that's what having brothers was like as well. You're like challenging each other in a healthy way.
I didn't get that a lot. There was a lot of conflict, and those wounds have not healed between me and my brothers because there's a lot of conflict. And I think I won't go back to the siblings app completely, but just making sure that you always protect that relationship and sacrifice your relationship with the kid if you need to over the siblings. You know, this is my fault. This hasn't gone well. I was the one that stuffed it up. You know. Yeah, even like little simple things, you know, like Evie fell over in the bathroom because Charlie was throwing water at me while I was bathing both of them last night, and she was really upset at Charlie, and I was like, no, it's my fault. It's my fault that happened. I didn't pick up the water. You know,
we got that mate that's good at that, don't we?
Yes, Benny's.
Another episode.
Yeah, might as well do
gets more mentions than me.
Third mic.
Better not even move to Melbourne.
He's a beautiful man, but I think he likes the sun too much. Anyway, that's the end of the longs.
Beautiful.
I just want to say something. Just this time, maybe more than any, there were phenomenal longs that came through that we actually had a crack at including, but it would have been a 3.5, 4 hour episode. Yeah. And I just want to honour some of the amazing stuff that came through that we weren't able to read out. Yep. Where they were just so long, and it would have been not doing them justice to cut them down. So we just now read purely everything that we've always have actually just read exactly. We don't change anything because we want it to be genuine. But they were just such long, beautiful stories that we weren't able to. And I'm going to try and find a way to honour them. But it also helps build out what we do in the future, realising where the support might be helpful. So I just want to really thank everyone who sent in. Like 1% of what comes in gets read, less than that. But you are still informing me, and I don't want people to stop doing that because they don't hear their questions. But just sometimes it's just really hard because it will take kind of 10 minutes to read it.
They do inform what you do, don't they?
Massively. They also heal me, which is not the community's responsibility, but they connect with me. There's beautiful messages come through and connect with me, and I reckon almost every day I'll tear up at something that comes through from the PCP community.
I was reading these next ones in the cafe before. We start at 7 in the morning, on a 7:30, and I was like, oh, Jesus.
Yeah, let's see if we can get through all of them without. But yeah, and these are some beautiful things that came in. There was a lot of similarities, a lot of amazing stuff that was really helpful, so we tried to pick just the best ones.
Couple of crackers.
This podcast is brought to you by Guiding Growing Minds, a social enterprise that aims to give all children the best opportunity to reach their potential and succeed in living rich and meaningful lives.